everyone, to today's Fast Chat, Migrating Workloads to the Cloud. I'm your host, Nick Cavalancia with Channel Futures, and I'm joined today by Lilac Shoenbeck, Vice President of Portfolio and Channel Marketing over at Carbonite. Hey, Lilac, thanks for joining me today.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Let's jump right into the questions. The first one I've got for you is, why should MSPs be thinking about migrating their customers' workloads to the cloud?
Oh gosh, I feel like everybody's talking about it. And I think the reasons initially were about cost, but I actually think that might not be the core reason. I think the core reason these days is flexibility, enabling them to grow and shrink their usage of resources, as well as some level of resilience, right? The cloud has been architected to be incredibly robust, and that's usually far beyond what most people can have on site.
Great reason. So one of the biggest issues I hear from MSPs is that of business disruption. Do you feel like that's a valid concern?
Yeah, of course it is. Migration is something that we all like to put off as long as possible because it's kind of an unpleasant process. A bunch of engineers have to stay late. You have to order pizza. It's a thing. And really, there's a high risk associated with most migrations. You can have an outage because something went wrong. If it takes more than the hour that you predetermined it should take, all of a sudden you've got systems that are down and emails that need to be sent, and God forbid it actually takes even longer than that. I think the fear of business interruption is obviously associated with the revenue issues and operational costs, and all of that keeps everybody kind of backing away from the migration for as long as they can.
So what are some of the other challenges that MSPs would normally face when they're trying to migrate?
I think there's the issue of like which workloads you're migrating together. You want to get a cluster of them at the same time. You also want to feel confident in that destination environment is something that you can manage for your customer, or that the customer is comfortable managing themselves. Because a lot of these hyperscale clouds are basically new platforms that need to be managed according to different metrics, with different kinds of inputs and feedbacks and different levels of control, right? You're not actually fixing the underlying hardware anymore.
No, love that. So I guess the last question I'm thinking of is, can it be as simple as lift and shift? You know, that's the sort of the term being used. So do you think migrating workloads to the cloud can be as simple as lift and shift?
It can be, but you have to set it up, right? It's not the kind of thing that you just leave to fate, which isn't usually the way IT people operate anyway. What you want to do is actually set it up so that the migration itself is a non-event. That makes it a lift and shift. So you start with a core, primary system. You create a secondary replica in the cloud. You make sure those are super synced up with the technology that replicates things in a very, very rapid pace. So you don't have a huge RPO problem, a huge area where you've lost data. And then what you can do is test the destination, make sure it's working, beat it up as long as you want, right? And then the actual flip to the cloud migration is just a push of a button, a failover, a redirect of a DNS, then you can take down the primary site and you're all set. But if you haven't done all that pre-work, and frankly, if you haven't used a tool to do it, that would make it more straightforward than trying to do it manually. Then yeah, there's a lot of high risk in it, but it can be a lift and shift if you're doing it right. And frankly, it can also be cheaper if you're doing it right, because the risk you've introduced is almost zero, and the time it takes is almost zero, and the amount of pizza that it costs and beer is really negligible at that point.
Great perspective, and indeed. So I've been talking today with Lilac Shoenbeck, Vice President of Portfolio and Channel Marketing at Carbonite. Thanks for your time today, Lilac. I appreciate your input.
My pleasure, and always a pleasure.